Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Always an Expat, a podcast dedicated to elevating expat stories, brought to you by fellow expat, yours truly, Richard Taylor. My guest today is Elaine Bailey Anderson. Elaine is president, founder, and master coach at Coach Brilliant, where she is a coach's coach, which is wonderfully meta. So I'm sure we're going to talk about that and about Elaine's professional background in big corporations, but we're really here to focus on how she found herself in Asheville, North Carolina, which I've heard wonderful things about. And more than anything, I know we're going to talk about bears. Yep, you heard that right. I said bears. So suffice to say, this is going to be a good one. But before we get into it, I just need to get the boring stuff out of the way. All right, so Always an Expat is absolutely not a financial podcast, but it is brought to you by Plan First Wealth. Plan First Wealth is a business I founded and run today, and we work with successful British expatriates living across the US. These are people like the ones I have on this show, to help them make the most of their opportunity to avoid the expat landmines and ultimately to retire happier. Now, with that being said, whilst Plan First Wealth LLC is an SEC-registered investment advisor, the views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Plan First Wealth. Information presented is for educational purposes only. All right, so without further ado, let's do this. Hi, Elaine. Welcome to Always an Expat.
Hey, thank you. Welcome. Welcome to you too, Richard. It's great to talk to you.
Super. Right, well, okay, so I alluded to it there, Elaine, but if you wouldn't mind, tell us your story. Tell us how you ended up in this unfortunate position, sat here talking to me.
Well, if I go back to 2013, it was. I've always been an adventurer, a risk taker, a quick starter in terms of what I do and in my life, and that's always boded well for me. But in 2013, I made a decision to uproot from the country of my birth, which is England, and to move to the USA. So I left behind all the familiarity of my homeland, where I'd lived and worked all my working life, and I was made an offer by my best friend who lives over here that I couldn't refuse. So always a quick start. I sold my house and my car. I gave everything away except the essential things that I could fit into literally 4 suitcases and a laptop bag, because that's all physically I could move on my own as an individual. And I had 2 kitty cats too that came with me, but they came later, a few days later, and I met them later. But that's all I could physically carry. So on the 13th of December 2013, I boarded my plane from London Heathrow and headed for Charlotte International Airport. And believe me, it was a huge leap of faith, but I was determined to make it on my own.
So wait, so a couple of things. So quick start, is that a specific reference to Colby?
It is actually a reference to Colby, yes. Yeah. And it means
okay.
that, I do it before I think about it sometimes. I sold everything in a 2-week period of time and cleared my house in 2 weeks. I mean, I knew it was happening about a month before because I got the visa. But then I got the visa on the 2nd of December, and I was living in America on December the 13th. So it was fast moving, my friend.
Yeah, well, you're talking to another extreme quick starter. I am. We have everyone who joins here do a Colby.
Oh, do
and
you?
I'm either. I think is it a scale of 10? I think I can't remember whatever it is. I'm 8 or 9 quick start and almost nothing on the rest of them. Whichever the one is, which is where you actually do stuff. The final one, I can't remember what it is.
The implementer is the
implement.
Is the one.
Yeah. I'm not that, but I'm all quick start. And
totally with you there.
It's a blessing and a curse, right? It's a blessing because you just. I do stuff. I don't think too much about it.
No.
And you make stuff happen, but it's a curse in that I often don't think things through properly. I start things without with no real means of actually implementing them, which can be good and bad.
Well, I'm a certified consultant with Colby, and I use it in my business. So, and I'm a 3296. So I am thereabouts with you on all of that. So it's, we like to have that freedom, and it's your relationship to risk and uncertainty. And there's always a plan B, but you and I both won't know what plan B is until we've come to the end of plan A. but there's always a plan B there.
Well, it's in my life. My life would be absolute chaos without my wife, and without in Plan First rather without Martha. Martha was my first hire,
Yeah.
and I hired her to had to do Colby, and it was to like, right, I'm all quick start. I need someone to help me fill in these blanks. So we're total opposites, but we really complement each other. And this business would be complete chaos without her. So without those two in my life, it's kind of scary what would be going on.
And it's good to have differences because that helps you, that gives you more choices of problem solving and decision making, which is really what Colby's about. It's about you have your own natural way of doing things when you're free to be yourself. So having different approaches means if you've got somebody like you, it would be, you'd have a great time, but my goodness, you'd never dot the I's or cross the T's.
No, totally. Well, do you know as well, so something blew up in my business, as it happens every week, right? Something blows up every week in a business.
Absolutely.
But something blew up last week in a business, and I came at it completely from my usual perspective, and then I checked in with Martha, who was away, but I needed to check in with her because I knew she would have a completely different angle on it. And it wasn't just a case of like, I needed to implement something, but it was like, okay, what's she going to have thought of? How is she going to see this in a way that I won't even realize? And that's really important. I've come to realize, not come to realize, but it is really important that she will have these insights and perspectives that change the decision that we ultimately make and the approach that we take that I wouldn't have seen.
And it makes it better too, because I mean, you and I start by, okay, we've got a problem to solve. Let's brainstorm. What's the possibilities? Whereas maybe Martha is more of somebody who likes to gather the facts, look at what we've done before,
100%.
Really go into the data. So if you were to say, let's brainstorm, she wouldn't be able to brainstorm because she's thinking, how can we brainstorm when I haven't even gathered the information yet to be able to do it? So it's
100%.
having those opposites and differences in your business is a really valuable thing. Absolutely.
We have to be careful though, because my rashness can really, frustrate and frankly sometimes upset her. And as well, I can like bound in like Tigger, like, oh, I've got this idea, we're going to take over the world, and I'm met with like not necessarily. Yeah, well, that's what it feels like. It's not that, but that's what it can feel like. So and just being mindful of those things as well. Colby has been a fantastic tool in my life. Just labeling these things, like, because I was also I'm the only quick start in my family. So growing up, I was a complete anomaly. So I castigated for it, honestly. Like, I'm from a family of do it once and do it properly. And I am I'm like, do it 10 times and maybe I'll get it right once. Right? I've ever read an instruction manual. I need to be careful here in case people, if any clients are listening, just remember, Martha is with me. Right? Okay. So.
Well, and the cool thing about understanding a modality like Colby, which I use it with all my clients in my business, anybody I'm coaching, anybody I'm helping in their coaching business, because once you have an understanding, you can appreciate and understand the differences. And by understanding and appreciating the differences, it opens up a whole new range of possibilities. And you're prepared more to listen to, because it's not them being, if you pardon my way of saying it, bloody minded. They're not being difficult. They're trying to get the best results like you're trying to get the best results, but we're looking at it through different lenses. So understanding those different lenses enables you to be stronger and get better results in your business and have more success. That's really what this is all about.
Totally.
And you're more forgiving too, because you realize it's not you personally having a go at me or doing something different to me and annoying me. It's just different way of doing things, and that's great.
Yeah, but it's made me more forgiving of other people. Not that they were seeking or deserving of my, not that they were looking for my forgiveness, but that when I talked before about having that frustration, being understanding what that was, but also where I'm trying to go with it was it made me more forgiving of myself. Like, I am rash, I am impulsive, I am trying to do 10 things at once. Yeah. And like I said to you before, that is a superpower, and it can be damaging. But prior to understanding this and harnessing it, and having people around me who can help me harness it, I honestly thought it was a negative. But it doesn't. It's not.
No, and it's a strength. Yeah, you if Martha's a 2 and you're a 10 on quick start because that's the scale. There's, it tells you where you are on that. A 2 as much a strength as a 10 or as much a strength as a 9, and that it brings those different
Hmm.
dimensions into the business and
Hmm.
into understanding of human nature as well, which is a wonderful thing. Yeah, I
Okay,
love it.
well, that was a fantastic tangent we went off there.
I know.
Um, so
Straight in on a tangent.
how did you end up as a coach?
I've been a professional coach all my professional coach and trainer all my life. I have had a career of over 30 years now, being a professional learning and development consultant and leadership and behavioral skills uh, consultant, traveling the world, training, coaching, consulting. So I've traveled around the world, trained and coached in all kinds of different countries. Usually, mostly for organizations. I did a lot of that for big organizations like the big four banks and places like Toyota and all kinds of big companies. So I'd run leadership development programs. I'd be doing executive coaching and training leadership development programs for middle managers as well as senior managers. So I've actually I'm very proud to say that I've actually delivered conflict management in business in
Hmm.
Beirut in Lebanon.
Oh, wow.
So it's been a fantastic experience. So I've always been a professional coach and a developer of people. So they class me as a human resource development specialist, and that's been my career right throughout.
But then, how did you end up in the States doing it? How did you get to the States?
Yeah, well, very very long short story, but I'll keep it short. Is I because of traveling is so easy for me. I found this lady who I loved her music. She's called Christine Kane. I found her music and fell in love with her music, and found she was running a retreat. And I just happened to be traveling over to the States, and I thought, well, I could go to this women's retreat, and even if it's not very good, I could. She's doing a concert on the Saturday night, so I get to hear her play music live, which is wonderful. So I came over, and the actual retreat itself was in those days for me it was very woo woo because I wasn't particularly
Mm.
woo woo in the sense that it was there was kind of a spiritual connection and everything, but it actually changed my life. It was a catalyst for changing my life. I was in a happy relationship and all kinds of the work that I was doing was very very hard work, and it drained me a lot because I was
Mm.
always had a backpack and was traveling. So it was a catalyst for change, and I really enjoyed it. So, and that's what brought me to Asheville, and I fell in love with Asheville the first minute. It's the only place I've ever lived that I felt like I was home, and I thought, well, that's interesting. Not sure what to do with that, but anyway, to cut a long story short, I loved the retreat, and I came back for the next retreat in the October of the year, and Christine and I became friends. My clients, it was cheaper for my clients to fly me instead of direct from London Heathrow to, say, Rio de Janeiro. It was cheaper, quite a few $100s cheaper for them to fly me via Charlotte, Asheville, Charlotte, then Rio, from London Heathrow and back. So my clients were like, yeah, save us some money and book it that way. So I used to come and help her run her women's retreats a little bit. So it was like a busman's holiday, in the
Hmm.
sense that I got to do all the things I love to do in the background and not actually teach, but it was fun. And we became friends, which is where, we became really good friends. And I helped her. She was moving out of doing singer-songwriter work and moving into running. She was originally running a life coaching business. And then in that first year, I joined her program. In that first year, it transmuted to business coaching. And I supported her all the way through. And she offered me in 2012, or sorry, 2013, she said, would you come over and set up my coaching team and be part of our leadership team here in the US? And I said, sure, yeah, that sounds great. So I packed my bags up real quick, and I moved over here. I had my own business then. I was running my own business, which was Elaine International Limited, which was coaching, consulting, and still working with in the corporate world quite a bit with clients. But I kept that business ticking over. It's always good to have a plan B, as we said at the
Mm.
beginning. So, but I didn't need to do that. And then the rest is just history, really, in terms of that. I met my husband here and we fell in love and I've been here ever since. I'm on up to almost 10 years now, 10 years this Christmas.
When did you first go on that? What year was that first retreat?
2007, March
So from
2007.
2007 to 2013, you went on a retreat, started building a relationship, and that turned into
Yeah,
moving out here. How
yeah.
did that work from a visa
Well,
permanent residency perspective?
yeah, well, it worked. You know, if you believe in the law of manifesting, it was amazing. I remember I was sat in this dysfunctional relationship with my boyfriend at the time in around about 2008. And even then, without knowing anything, even then I thought, you know, it would be really interesting if I could move to America, you know, and go and live in Nashville. Wouldn't that be great? So we both did the online visa thing, which was just a test to see if you were eligible. And I was eligible and he wasn't, which was interesting. And I never thought any more about it. But in the back of my mind, I used to fly over to the US. And I used to cry when I was leaving the US coming home because I felt like, rather than the other way around, you know, it was like I was feeling like I was moving away from home. So, but the visa stuff all flowed really, really well for me. I came over on a green card and worked on that. And then, obviously, when I met my husband, which I wasn't expecting, but I met my husband to be, and then once we got married, we registered for the full-time green card in the sense of or citizenship, and then moved into citizenship. So I didn't have any problems with visas. I've been very blessed with that. I mean, it's a very long, drawn out, and it's you have to have a bunch of cash to be able to do it, don't you? But it worked really well for me.
When you say you came over, do you mean you came over on not a green card, but like an E visa,
Yeah, it was. I can't remember exactly what
investor
visa it was.
visa?
Yeah, it was. Yes, that was
Yeah,
it. Yeah, just
yeah,
initially because I wasn't sure what, you know, and I was learning and growing with her in her business, and I wasn't sure whether it was going to be a long-term thing, and
yeah.
then we moved to get the green card. So the green card came
Uh-huh.
along,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then I moved over to citizenship ultimately.
And then, so tell us about Asheville. I've not been to Asheville, but I hear some great things about Asheville. It sounds like a great
Asheville
place.
is just a wonderful place. It's like this little bubble of I don't know what the rest of America's like. I know that in
Yeah.
Asheville, it's everybody's really friendly here. I mean, we're in the mountains. You have everything. You know, we have amazing hikes, beautiful scenery. My house backs onto the Swananoa River, so I get to see multitude of wildlife here, and that's one of the things that was really fascinating. When I was driving down the street one day and I saw my first black bear just walk across the street. I mean, being English, of course, as we know, it's used to seeing maybe a fox, or you know, where I lived in Dorset, I saw a badger occasionally, but to see a 500-pound black bear just sauntering down the middle of the street was a little surreal, and it doesn't get tiring even now. It's so amazing to see, so amazing to see. So it's just a beautiful place. It's very it's art driven, cultural driven, by people are very open, very into music, into all kinds of alternative medicines as well. So it's there's nothing that would surprise you that would be here that oh yeah, we have that in Nashville.
Do you know what the
And
history is? Do you know why it's this little enclave of?
I only know a little bit of it, and I know that it used to be people used to travel here because of the clean air and use it for healing. And I think it became ultimately kind of like a healing center, so whether it was people in the cities and so on that moved out of here for the cleaner air, that's one understanding of it, of my understanding of it.
So you've been there 10 years now, and you wouldn't go anywhere else.
No, I love this. I've come home. This is the first time, as I say,
You've come
after all that
home.
traveling around the world, and I used to move a lot in just, different parts of the country in the UK and so on. But this is the place I've stayed the longest so far in my life, and I absolutely love where I live. Absolutely
This
love
is
it.
home. So you're an American citizen legally now.
I am,
Are
yeah,
you an
yeah.
American citizen emotionally?
I still have my roots. I like the dual passport thing.
I do as well.
Um,
Yeah.
but I love that. I mean, it's hard, it's so hard to think about because even when I was thinking about coming on this feels so much like home to me. It could be England, in some ways, not because it's like England. It's so different from that, and I can tell you about how I dealt with that. Um, changing, for being pulled out of one world into another. But I don't notice that I talk differently. I don't know about yourself, but I do notice it when I come up with some Englishism, some word or phrase, and I can see on the look on the person's face, whether it's my husband or one of my friends, and it's like, you didn't understand that, did you?
I w-
so, so I just feel this is home. I really just feel this is home. I don't feel it as a country. I just feel this is where I belong, which
I
is
went
beautiful.
I went to a new parents' school event last night for my kids' new school, and I was talking to some of the parents, both Americans, and I referred to my kid as being in the wars. I said, "Oh, Xavier, he's always in the wars," and they were like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, right, you don't say that." Okay, yeah, that was one of those
Rewind.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's so many silly. I mean, it's like, you think about the cars and you think about, the hood and the trunk. Now, if I think of boot and bonnet, it makes me smile.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
different. And there's so many different things, isn't there? I mean, I don't really want you want me to talk about that, but I mean, when I first came over, everything was an adventure to me. And, I was living my dream. I was this intrepid explorer in the new world, pioneering. But what I didn't realize was all the systems I'd grown up with that had supported me up to this point were now irrelevant in the new home, and I understand why they call you a legal alien for the first time because I could totally relate to the fact it was like you just arrived on a new planet. Because everything was different. I remember going into the stores, into what we would call the supermarkets, and none of the brands made any sense. There may be one or two, but very few. So you'd start having to, it would mentally, from a mental energy perspective, it was draining going supermarket, store shopping, grocery shopping, because you'd have to read everything to figure out what was what. So that was one thing. Another thing was the crossing the roads, because we drive on the other side of the road, of course, left, on the left-hand side in the UK, and over here we drive on the right. And crossing the road, I just look the wrong way and step out, and my friends would pull me back. So you're having to really stop and think before you cross the road.
Elaine, it's not even that we drive on different sides of the road. It's that in the UK, people stop at a zebra crossing. In the
Oh yeah,
US, people have people speed up for zebra crossings.
yeah, it's like a sport.
Yeah,
But it's the same with letting you in. It's like
totally.
I kind of got used to not waving at people now and for thanking them because nobody lets you in,
Yeah.
and nobody waves to say thank you afterward. I mean, occasionally they do here, but it's like
No,
how
I'm not. I don't.
rude.
Yeah, it really winds me up. Do you know the other thing? So is people on a busy dual carriageway or whatever they call it here, or an
Yeah,
interstate, and people will use the on ramp. So if someone's coming from another road onto the
yeah,
motorway. People who don't fancy being in the queue will just use the on ramp to undertake. I mean,
yeah.
I've never seen anything like it in my
Oh
life.
my goodness,
I have
yeah,
to like talk myself down.
yes,
It's
yeah.
like
It's you
you,
have to have your wits about you all the time, don't you? With it, and
yeah.
I mean, even when I got here, even though, I had a really good credit ratings in the UK, and I had credit cards with, big limits on because you know how they put them up and put them up and put them up for you. And here I had to give American Express $1,000 so I could have
Yeah,
$1,000 limit.
yeah,
It
same.
really is like you're beginning again. It's like nobody knows you. It's like, which planet have I landed on?
Yeah, I think as well that we have a false sense of expectations because we think we know America because we grew up,
Yeah,
we speak the same language, mostly anyway.
absolutely.
We grew up, America is so dominant in all our lives because it's America, and then there's a TV and Hollywood and all that stuff. So we get here and think it's going to be one thing, and it's another thing altogether. America has different values. It has a different legal system.
It does.
There might be some similarities, but there's a lot of differences. And I don't think people. You move to Mexico, you know it's going to be. There's a language for a start, right?
Yeah.
But I think we land here expecting America to be one thing, and it's always something else, and that can be a challenge to deal with, because you have to get before you embrace the differences, you have to fix yourself and your expectations, and that took me a while, to be honest with you. I used to rail against it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the skills that I've learned through this experience has been huge, and I must admit, it's made me a much better coach and developer and a helper of people, because I had to take responsibility for my life. Making a commitment to change everything, which is absolutely what I'm sure you appreciate that too. You actually, you don't realize it at the time, but you're committing to change everything has taught me how to accept full responsibility for my own life. And, I make things happen, and waiting isn't an option if you want to fulfill those dreams. So, moving to a whole new country, different words, different accents, you stand out. I've had people stop. I've had housekeeping in a hotel here in Asheville. I was in a room right at the top of the hotel, and the housekeeping got in, heard my English accent, and was calling her friends on the radio to stop and listen to me talk. It was like I was some kind of act, some kind of circus act or something, to listen to. But we unconsciously just want to blend in, but people consciously remind you about the differences, don't they? Or they try your English accent out, and which is always usually a bad interpretation of it. But you just want to blend in.
Well,
so some days I try to.
We get away with murder here.
Yeah,
I love it. Martha, who I referred to earlier, she's like, it's a form of unearned privilege, and it absolutely is.
Yes.
Right? But I still bask in it. But I know I thoroughly enjoy the.
Oh, I love it. And people love, I when I do presentations, which I do, if I'm talking from the stage, often I just say, well, even if you don't want to listen to what I have to say, if you just sit back and listen to my soothing tones for the next 30 minutes, it'll be pleasant for you. And, people usually laugh because it's, they just want to hear you talking. But the one thing that moving here really helped me to do was to help me to be present in my life, because you think we have so many things that we do habitually and unconsciously without thinking. We pretty much run on autopilot. We're more mechanical than we think. But by being an immigrant, it forced me to be really present, because everything was different. And I was, whether it was crossing the road or going to the store or whatever, it's been so fascinating, and it's just taught me to be much more present in my life. And I can still find myself walking on the left-hand side on the sidewalk if I'm not careful, and then I wonder why everybody's walking at me, and then it's like, oh, I remember.
Yeah, no, I haven't succeeded. Being present is a work in progress for me. I think that's part of being a quick start, is just live in the future permanently, or ruminate about the past a lot as well, and trying to get out of my head and into the present is difficult. What you said before about it's changed it. So I'm from Bolton. I was living in Manchester. My entire life was meant to be growing up in playing golf in Manchester and working in Bolton in a family firm. That was going to be my life, and I would have been a certain person if I'd done that. And then I was in the Middle East for a while, and I would have been the same person. I'd have learned some stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd been slightly different, but I think I'd have been an exaggerated version of that person who was meant to live in Manchester and Bolton. And then I came to America, and America has got so many problems and faults, right? So I'm not trying to paint America as a panacea of enlightenment, because it's not. But something happened when I lived in New York, and I changed. And I don't know if that is because of New York, or it's because of America, or it's because I was in my early 30s. I don't know. But I went through a seismic shift.
Wow.
And as I'm 39 now, and I'm not the person I thought I was going to become. And my wife, who's been on that journey, she's also witnessed it, and she agrees. So I don't think this is just a story I'm telling myself. And I really don't know.
I'm married.
Yeah, well, I think she prefers the person I've become, which is a good thing. But
you've grown together.
Yeah, well, we definitely have, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Because going back to that quick start thing, the reason we're in America is because of me. The reason
Mhm.
America has worked for us is because of my wife. Well, that's a dynamic we have. I
Wow.
get us into hot
Mhm.
water. She makes it work.
Right.
But if she wasn't with me, there's a lot of stuff she wouldn't have done because
Right.
I wouldn't have basically dragged her along. So she's grown immensely as well, and she's thriving. But
Right.
I don't know, is that, I don't know what it is. Is that because of America, or is that because of just moving, or is that because I don't know.
I
I do
think
not know.
I wonder whether it's, from my experience, I just wonder whether it's you get to be, you get, in a way, you get to reinvent yourself. Although I didn't think that at the
Mm,
time, but you can be yourself. You can be. It's almost like beginning again in some ways, because you get to be whatever you want to be, and you grow into it. And I think living in a different place and learning a different culture and living and breathing that culture also changes you in that way, because I think it can bring out the best in you, because it gives, just gives you a different perspective on life and how small the world really is, and that we're all human beings, which is, is so helpful. And I tell you, the other thing that it helped me to do was it helped me to strengthen my decision making, the way that I did make decisions. Because when you move to a different country, you think about I had to rethink and explore everything as I was adapting to my new environment. And as I'm sure you did too, you were forced to make decisions every single day. I moved into a completely empty house with these 4 suitcases and 2 cats. So I had decisions to make around that and decisions in the work. So I was showing up every day and strengthening my decision making muscles, which has made me more confident and more capable person. So some of the situations that we've placed ourselves in as a result of making the decision to move and to experience something different, I think really helps you grow as a person, definitely.
absolutely. All right, so let's talk about bears.
Why not? I
Why
have a
not,
bear
eh?
t-shirt on here today, which I'm so sad you can't see, but it says "No bear left behind" on it.
No bear left behind. Love it. Okay,
Yeah.
so tell me, how did this just began because you saw one in the street, and then on in the stream behind you, and then it's just progressed from there?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it's pretty surreal when you're walking down the street and a bear walks towards you or cuts across the road in front of you, and you see this massive thing, this big thing. And I think we're conditioned from television and movies and so on that bears are ferocious and terrible creatures and vicious and aggressive, and black bears are more frightened of you than you are of them, 99.9% of the time. Don't try this at home, but it's true. So that's how I just fell in love with them, and I thought I want to see more of them. And anyway, it just by chance, because I live on the Swannon River and my house is in the woods. I think the bears have been crossing at the end of the road here where I live in this cul-de-sac for probably 20, 30, 40, 50 years, since before these houses were built here, I'm sure. So I get to see them crossing the river, and walking around, and just, they'd just walk past and flare off and go down the street. And then you'd see baby bears, mum and baby bears. So I just got to see more and more of them. And I started to think, how can, I'd love to learn more about them. So I started to read everything I could. I found Appalachian Bear Rescue, which is just a wonderful, wonderful organization. They're just over the mountains in Tennessee, and they are licensed to rehabilitate and help orphan cubs up to the age of 2. So they take in the strays and the injured, and they look after them and then let them release them. And it's so funny, because I thought I found what I really want to do in my life, now finally. So I watch them. I'd listen to, I'd watch their live recordings, and learn and read every book I possibly could on bears. And I just, a bit like moving here, I just held that open to see what would happen. And I just carried on watching the bears and so on. And we don't see them every single day, but this time of year they're all filling up to eat. All they're focused on is eating, so they can have a big fat body, so a chubby cubby, so they can go to sleep until the spring, and it keeps them alive. And if mums to be can then have babies, so they're doing is they're around more at the moment than we do see them throughout the year. But I just fell in love with them, and then I ended up looking to see how can I get involved in bears, because you can't really. It's hard to get it because of the nature of the animal. And I volunteer at the nature centre here, the Western North Carolina Nature Centre here in Asheville. So I'm what we call a bear docent. So
Bear docent.
a bear docent. I had to look up docent. I wasn't sure what that was. Didn't know whether that was poop cleaner when I first read it. But it's so I am an educator. So I educate people who walk past. I have a cart with lots of information and some, a bit of bear fur so they can touch it, and a footprint and things like that, so they can, and a claw, so they can get a sense of the bears. And I'll answer questions or tell them about the bears, which is really great. So that got me more and more involved. I did some volunteer work for Help Asheville Bears as well. So they are helping to stop poaching, because poaching's a huge thing, bear trapping and things like that.
Why? Like, why are people poaching bears?
I don't, because their body parts, like the bile, and people are fascinated by the paws and things like this, so they will trap them and then kill
But
them.
wait,
And
but Elaine, what paws for what? Like, why do they want the paws?
I think there's some medicine. There's some kind of medicine connection to it, and also just having that as a trophy as well.
Oh God!
I mean, the horrible thing here is that if a bear gets run over here, and it's by the side of the road, people will come and pick the body up, or they will cut the paws off and take the paws, because so they've got it as a trophy. I mean, I stopped the other day to make sure that somebody wasn't doing that with a dead bear, and it was actually wildlife that had come to stop, to actually move the bear. So it was the right person, that to come and collect them. But yeah, I mean, we are just so barbaric in a lot of things that we do, that it just opened my world to the fact that, how cruel we are to animals and so on. And I've always been an avid animal lover, but I mean, the poor bears have such a bad rap, because they are so inquisitive, intelligent. They are more scared of you. They, in the realm of fight, flight, freeze, they freeze first to see what's going on. Then they would run away. They would only fight and attack as a last resort if they felt their life was threatened.
What about a mum with cubs? That's
well, yeah. I mean, there's some myths about mums with cubs as well, that one mum with cubs is aggressive. I would never get between a mum and a cubs, because that could, by accident, if that happens, I think the mum would just maybe swat to try, but I mean, a swat of a big paw like that might be, it might give you a nasty scar for sure. But they are not going to attack. There's something called a false charge, whereas I was out on the street here about 2 months ago, and there was a mum with two cubs. We didn't see her. She was just further up the hill. But she was opposite us, and we just watched her, and I just said, "Hey bear, how are you?" Talking in a calm voice, and just said, "How are you? It's just us." And she did a false charge, which is what they do is they run a few steps forward and then they stomp. That was my impression of stomping on the table. But never has that false charge ever turned into an aggressive attack. What that bear is actually doing is she's actually telling you, "Hey, I'm scared and nervous. I've got my family here. Back off." So it's their anxiety and fear that's being expressed that way. But the challenge we have as human beings is we think and behave like human beings, so we expect other animals to behave like human beings. And that unless we step back and actually take time to learn and understand bear behavior and understand what bear behavior means, And once you actually understand that, you can recognize the fact that, if a bear is false charging you, then yeah, of course, you're going to say, okay, I'm out of here, and you're moving away calmly and slowly and not turning your back on it. But it's not, the mom's not going to charge you, not
So
going to attack you.
black bears aren't. So grizzly bears, though, you need to be wary of grizzly bears, right? Brown bears.
Yeah, I don't know as much about grizzly bears, but I do know they can be quite. They can have a tendency to attack, and they could eat humans. I mean, the black bear could eat human if they found a dead body in the woods. Black bears are 90% vegetarian.
Oh, really?
So they eat nuts, berries, grass. I was watching one in my yard here eating, I don't know why, but eating river cane, and it was a cub, and it was just chewing it. But they'll eat carrion. They might eat small rodent. But
my 1-year-old ate some dog kibble the other day. So if it's a child, just all bets are
they'll
off.
eat that.
Right?
They'll eat pizza too.
Yeah, who wouldn't?
I mean, I've seen one walking down the street that had been in a neighbour's bin, and it had a slice of pizza in its mouth just walking down the street, which is the most bizarre thing.
Is that that's the Asheville version of the New York rat, the famous video of the New York rat carrying pizza down the subway stairs? Is that a problem, though, them going into bins?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's the majority. Mostly, if there's an issue with the bear, it's connected. It's a human issue, really.
Yeah.
If you look through to it, because if you don't make sure that you don't put food out, or you don't put trash in, you just leave your bins out and you put waste food and stuff like that, and then you're going to attract them. They can smell up to 10 miles away. They have such an amazing sense of smell. They can smell food 10 miles away. And they'll just wander up and go and look at it. And they don't know it's the wrong thing, but the bear gets the bad rap for it. So you can get bear-proof trash cans. You can get straps for them. Or a lot of us here just make sure that we don't put anything that smells that would attract them out in the bin at all until it's trash day, in the morning of trash day. And we never have any problems with bears down here going into the trash now because of that.
So
people feed them sometimes as well, which is, there's that could cause a problem, especially if you feed them because they'll come around and expect it. But again, if somebody's feeding a bear, then the challenge with that is that the bear is fine with that person. They actually recognize people individually. So that doesn't mean they're going to come to everybody's house and demand food, but there's fear around that. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but they are intelligent enough to understand people as individuals.
So is bear hunting called bear baiting, or are they two different things?
Yeah, they're two different things. I mean, what happens is at certain times of the year, between November, my understanding is November and I think it's November. There's a couple of weeks into November through December here, and then I think there's like a week in January. Then if you have a license, you're allowed to kill one bear. So what bear baiting is the hunters put food down, and then in some counties or some states, should I say, like where Minnesota is. They can actually, you're allowed to bait the bears, so put the food down and then shoot them while they're eating.
Oh my God.
Which is terrible, but it really is terrible. But in some ways, it's if that hunter has a clean shot, then at least that bear doesn't suffer. But here in Asheville, they're not allowed to shoot them while they're eating, but they can shoot them when they move away. And the other thing that I found out, which I mean, I think it's terrible. I really do, and I'm against it. But so these little bears can run away, and then what happens is they can be chased by dogs. So they have packs of dogs, and the dogs chase them up a tree, and then some guy just walks up and shoots the bear, and it falls out the tree.
Wait. So wait, Elaine. So this is all this stuff is legal. This is state sanctioned. This is allowed.
Yeah, as long as it's different states, different things.
Right.
And
Elaine,
also
why? Like, look, I'm not a hunter, but I understand if you're hunting a deer, you get the meat, whatever, right? But why are people hunting bears? Like, what is the purpose?
I don't know. I really don't. I mean, some of it is so they have a, they can have the trophy, so they can have the bear rug or the stuffed bear in their house and say, hey, look what I did. Maybe it's an extension of their prowess. I don't know. So, I mean, some hunters are, as you say, if you're hunting to eat meat and you're a good shot. But the thing here is anybody can get a gun license. So you could be the worst shot in the world and never shot something. So there's people out there hunting that can shoot things that have that are not a good shot. So they're going to hurt and the animals are going to suffer big time, which I think is terrible because there's no rules or regulations here. You just pay, it's all money. You just pay for a hunting license and you're only supposed to kill one. I mean, if it's somebody that, if it's somebody who is a good shot, then at least there's a chance that poor bear doesn't suffer. But I don't understand. It's not like they are a menace. I think that people make them a menace because of the way that we deal with things and deal with animals, and how we want to have a selfie with one, and then we expect them to be human like us and understand things, and we don't sit and really understand or respect animals. Animals have as much right to be here as we do. We're not one higher than them because we're human beings. It's the same with plants. Plants are that, have this, the things that we don't understand about plants and trees and how we're screwing up the whole of the world as a result of it is amazing. So it's just ignorant. A lot of it is ignorance.
Right, this might be an unfair question, but I'm going to throw it at you anyway. How do you reconcile the town that you love and espouses so many of your values with the same town that harbours these people who happily, load up and go out and shoot me some bears? Like, It's
very hard. It's very hard to do that. But I do know there are more people here that love animals, that deeply love animals, and in all the different communities that I've become involved in, that they deeply love the bears. They want them to be safe. They want them. They want certainly the poaching, because people are as I say, poaching them. They're illegally putting out traps. These man traps type of things to capture them. And these are people who are they're people who have suffered a lot in life. I think that they may not be mentally not mentally sane in some ways. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, but that they've suffered a lot. If somebody is abusing an animal, then they've probably met a lot of abuse in their life. But that doesn't condone it. But
hurt people.
Yeah, that's right. And the easiest thing to hurt is an animal, because the animal won't necessarily fight back. It hasn't got language. It doesn't have the same language as us. It has its own language. So they suffer greatly. It's really hard. I mean, all I can do is surround it in love and hold it in my heart. And I do what I can to help and to change things. I do what I can to help if there's any injured ones.
Is there any hope of getting? If there's no purpose in the killing, people who kill deer can say they do it to keep the populations down. They do it for food. Yeah. But if there's literally no purpose other than some sort of repulsive gratification, is there not a legal argument to be made that it should be outlawed, or is it all just, are you appealing to hearts and minds?
Well, I think we have that whole different philosophy here about hunting and owning guns. So I think there's a bigger issue around that. It's my right to be able to shoot things. If something came into my yard, I could shoot it if it was a threat. And animals are labelled as nuisances. Raccoons are nuisances. Bears are, I found out recently, are classed as kind of vermin in some ways in certain areas. But I think that the answer to some of this is education. If people were educated, and that's one of the things I'm trying to do in the work that I'm doing outside of my business, Coach Brilliant, but outside of that, then educating as many people as I can about the bears and understanding that they're more scared of you than you are of them generally. Say 99% of the time, you might get an insane angry bear occasionally, but you get an insane angry human. as well. So, I mean, and there's more chance of being killed by human beings here than there is of being killed by a bear. So I think education is one of the things, definitely.
But there's no chance of getting illegal. It's
I
not
don't.
going to
I don't
outlawed
think
anytime
so.
soon, do you think?
No,
No.
and also I think my understanding of this, and as much as I understand, is that they hunting licenses are there to make money. So wildlife will give hunting licenses. If people feel that a bear is a nuisance or what is labelled as an aggressive bear, which is some people label bear aggressive because it might have false charged you or something like that, and that's poor bear just turning around and saying, "Hey, I'm scared." It's like you going,
Yeah.
I'm scared. And with a lack of understanding of this, then it will continue. But we're hoping that the more education, because it is possible to coexist with bears. One of the places I was really fortunate a few weeks ago to go on a bear study field course with Dr. Lynn Rogers, who is spent 50 years up close and personal with bears, researching bears at his research centre. And I was at his research centre for 4 days, really close to bears. And they do a supplemental feeding process, and there's nothing he doesn't understand about bears, and in all his time he's never been attacked, never been bitten, never had anything aggressive happen to him over 50 years of working with bears, and he can actually put collars on bears, radio collars on bears, without tranquilizing them.
Is he the Jane Goodall of bears?
He is. He used Jane Goodall's techniques
Oh, really?
in the 1990s. He knows
wow.
Jane Goodall as well, actually. And
No
I
way.
mean, he's in his 80s now, but he took the same approach. And I listened to he taught us personally about bear behavior, about understanding bears, about all the misconceptions of bears and misunderstandings about bears. And he set up the North American Bear Center in Ely, in Minnesota, which tells you everything that you need to know. And there's so many myths about bears being aggressive and so on. And I actually stood next to a 574-pound black bear called Ty.
I've seen the pictures. He's
He
a
was
cutie.
gentle guy.
Yeah.
And when you look into their eyes, you can connect with them, from a deep soul level. There is some misunderstanding about animals. It breaks my heart.
Look. So once you get into this, once you're exposed to this world, or it's not even being exposed. Once your perspective changes on the treatment of animals, and whatever trigger it was for you, it was different for me. But once you go from kind of blindly consuming and whatever, and harming to like changing that behavior, that's one thing. You change your behavior, but when you look around and you see the immense, overwhelming suffering and cruelty inflicted on humans, it really tears you up. And it really gets you in half. And it becomes like, it's one thing modifying your behavior, it's another thing not being crushed on a daily basis by the cruelty.
Yeah, I mean, we are, we think we are the, super beings, and, we've evolved. But when you actually look at it, I don't think we have. I think the bears are, for using them as an example, the bears are, they don't have worry and anxiety and sit there and ruminate over things and stress over things and start to have false beliefs and things like that. They are very present in the moment, and they live their life day to day, and they're not worried about retiring. They're not worried about, wars. They're not worried about this, that, and the other. They're just getting on with their lives and working, through their lives as a bear day to day, and that's all they're doing. But we just like to, if we think of something as a threat to us, then we'll attack it, and we haven't got past that yet, and that's where I wonder whether our evolution has stopped here, and then with the advent of technology and where we're going with technology potentially, that could make or break us as in terms of our survival, and whether we actually stay on the planet or not. Really.
Well, if there are any bears listening who are worried about their retirement, Plan First Wealth can help. We generally only work with British expatriates living across the US, but I will make an exception for a friendly black bear and his family, so just bear that
I'll
in mind.
send them your way.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can pass out my cards in the woods of
But I was
Asheville.
just thinking, I've got a couple of bears that I know, and there's an older one that may need your help right now.
Well, yeah, no, I've
He's
looked
not
at the
sure what to
pictures.
invest in.
Ty, I saw Ty sat down looking at you. I thought me and Ty
Yeah,
could have a good chat.
yeah,
Anyway,
he's a gentleman. He is. I had lunch with him actually, which
yeah,
is the most bizarrest thing. And he was such a gent over lunch. I mean, I've had lunch with worse people, and he was just sitting there being really polite,
yeah, yeah,
which is a wonderful thing. So yeah, it does change your perspective on life, and you sometimes wonder how we got it so wrong, in terms of that. But I do what I do have hope with is the redeeming side of it is there are so many other people like me and like you who get this, that understand this, and I think the way of sharing that, even if every time I go to the nature centre on a Tuesday there and I talk about black bears, that it changes somebody's perspective to it, because education makes a difference. Even Dr. Lynn Rogers, when he was posting, he was one of the first people to put a bear cam, to put a camera in a bear den and to see the first babies, and how it changed what we understood about it, and everybody fell in love with it, but the people who don't like them for us falling in love and giving them names are people who want to shoot them, or want to hunt them and think, no, they're just dumb animals. Well, they are not dumb animals at all. And don't get me on wolves or bobcats, because I can spend hours talking about those as well.
yeah, yeah. No, it's deeply upsetting. It's deeply
Yeah,
unsettling.
yeah,
I don't know if I don't know if we are that close to it. I remember when I stopped eating meat, and
yeah,
I was talking
yeah.
to a friend, an American, who's got dogs,
Hmm.
and I remember him saying he was thinking he was going to eat less meat. He said asked me why I'd stopped. I said, oh, like I can't be part of this anymore. This like torture and
Hmm.
genocide of sentient beings. And he was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I don't really give a shit about the animals. It's just more for health. And I've never forgot that. I've never forgot that.
Wow.
He said that to me. Like, one, like, I've just told you that's my reason, and your response is I don't give a shit. That's pretty insensitive. Number two,
Yeah.
like, I know you do. I know you've got dogs. I know you love your dogs. Like,
Yeah.
what's the cognitive dissonance here? But not
Yeah.
equating, what happened to your dog is happening to if what was happening to other animals happened to your dog, you'd be devastated. But just
Yeah.
people don't put two and two together. I don't think.
No, no, no. I mean, I started doing it because in my spare time I do run a full-time business as well. But I do dog walking for Shelter Dog Transport Alliance, which is there because we don't have spaying and neutering here in North Carolina. Then people just go, oh, I'm gonna have some. Pup, let my dog have pups and all the rest of it, and they don't get them
Mm.
neutered, and then there's nowhere for the dogs to go. So all our shelters are full. So the Shelter Dog Alliance, what they've done is they transport dogs to New York and to Canada, where they have spaying and neutering laws, and their shelters are empty. So it's giving dogs a second chance. So little, dogs, puppies, often the ones that are shy, or the ones that that people would pass by, because if you imagine being suddenly locked in a cage and people staring at you, your behaviour is going to be different, isn't it? So I go and walk those little dogs for an hour or two, just before they transport them to their second chance of a new home. But I hear horror stories about dogs, cats, all kinds of stuff. It's
You know what
it's
I
terrible
heard
how what we
yesterday?
can.
I heard on the radio yesterday the vaccine hesitancy
Oh,
that
right.
spread through a certain segment of humans
Yes.
in the last few years has now spread to dog owners. And they were interviewing someone, obviously in Texas,
Yeah.
at a shelter, who now refuses to get their dogs vaccinated for rabies. And apparently, this is spreading across the
Really?
US because
No way.
they've never seen an animal with rabies, and if they've
No.
never seen it, therefore, obviously, it doesn't exist because
Right.
these people are only capable of observing
Yeah.
what's right in front of them. So they're just
Yeah.
not there. But this person had reckoned she'd seen a dog have a negative reaction to a rabies vaccine, which is incredibly rare, by the way. So
Right.
the people are just not vaccinating their dogs against rabies. So guess what is going to be coming back sometime soon? Just
So
like
we're going to
polio's made an appearance recently, right? What is
crazy.
going on? What is with us humans? Why are we like
No, and
this?
I think we made it work. And don't get me wrong, I love I do love the internet. We would not have met because otherwise.
Hmm.
But knowing all of what goes on the internet, there's so much polarization in terms of stuff, and we just
Misinformation as
yeah,
well. There's so much
misinformation.
misinformation.
Oh my goodness! And then we believe what we read, and then it's all one way or the other way, and it's just crazy. I mean, I'm glad bears aren't on the internet, because they'd be, maybe they'd be making guns right now and starting to, you know,
Yeah.
uh, forming a coup or something like that, a political coup. Who knows?
Yeah. Well,
But
watch
yeah,
this
it's
space.
crazy. So we just got to work in our own little environment, change our world, and do what we can in our world. And I'm thinking, I'm hoping that I'm changing people's lives and people's attitudes towards animals a day at a time. And I get the benefit of both worlds because I get to work. I've spent all my life and career working and understanding human behavior and working with people and helping them move forward and make change. And now, when I'm not doing that, I spend time understanding animal behavior and working with animals. So it's just very, very enriching.
Good. Yeah, I love being around animals. That's when people, when people talk about what fulfills them, what fills a cup. For me, it's being
Yeah.
around animals, especially wild. Not wild, but not. I don't mean like I love being around my dogs, but I mean
Oh yeah.
more
Yeah.
other animals. Elaine, as we wrap this up, this is a podcast about being an expat in America. So one thing I always ask my guests is, what does the American dream mean for them?
For me, for me, my American dream is that I do feel there's a sense of freedom here. For me, in my American dream is living, getting to live in the mountains, living in nature, being so close to nature, and the freedom that's associated with that is huge. And I'm very proud and honored to have been able to travel the world and see so many different places and different cultures, but to come here and to live here and this feel like home to me is just something very special.
Do
So
you
my
believe in this thing that we call the American dream? Do you think it is a thing?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard the term. Um, I, it's not a thing that's a big thing for me. I think it's more your own dream, because we are all here at this time, at this particular time. We're living here. We're all living and growing here. So I think it's more about your own dream and how that, and bringing that to life. But I mean, working together. I don't know if the American dream is that we are more conscious and more consciously aware, and we're kind to things. And then if that's the American dream, then I'm in for that. Absolutely.
Do you
But
think do you
I don't
think
know what it.
America is more conscious of those things than the UK?
Um, I'm not sure that they are. I think I actually, knowing what I know now, I think in England we're more. I mean, we don't have the guns, so I think cruelty does exist in the UK as well. With humans and because of the nature of human beings. But I think I don't know whether I don't know. I think the thing that still shocks me is the gun thing.
Me too.
And when you walk into if you go into the mall shopping and you see the sign there, "Don't bring your gun," it's like, why would you bring a gun?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's and you can be. I can sit here. There is a shooting range nearby, so I do hear. Occasionally, it's a police shooting range. You don't hear it very often, but I'll hear gun. But sometimes you might hear a gun go off, and for people here, it's kind of more normal. Whereas it would be like, what the heck is that? So, whether the guns make people more. I think there's more fear here because of the gun culture. I think we're
Yeah.
more fearful here. I mean, we're fearful in the UK for different reasons, but yeah. I mean, my
Yeah.
brother was a policeman for 30 years. He retired when he was 50, and he I mean, he never had a gun and so on, and he worked in some of the cities and stuff. And I mean, he's met some awful things, but it's different to having a gun and then hiding behind the gun.
It's very different. Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I do know that there's not a great deal of vegetarians and vegans in either UK or US, but in the US, the reason when someone is a vegan or vegetarian is overwhelmingly for personal reasons, to be fitter, stronger, whatever,
right.
Personal longevity or whatever, health reasons. In the UK, it's overwhelmingly because of animal rights.
Right.
But that does mean, though, that British vegans and vegetarians aren't always that healthy because they'll gorge on the other stuff. But I like that little stat.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I do.
We'd love Asheville. We've got every vegan, every vegetarian option available here. It's very good in that regard.
America is a wonderful place in so many respects, but it does feel unnecessarily violent and aggressive. For a developed country.
Yeah.
And that I struggle with that.
Well, I don't know whether you know much about the Enneagram, which is a personality. It's another thing I teach, actually. But I'll use in my coaching and working with people, which is personality. But personality types, and there's different, there are 9 different types, 9 different core types that you have a dominant type. And countries have types too. So the UK is a 6, which is more fear-based and more a little bit worried and anxious about things, whereas America is the type 3, which is the achiever. It's all about getting, doing, achieving, being the best, being this, being that, and the other. And I think some of that culture builds into that too. I think there is more. My sense of it is there's more aggression here. Unless I lived a sheltered life in England, I think it's more rawer here. I think raw would be the word I use as well. There's more of a, it's okay to have your guns and shoot shit. Sorry, I don't know whether I should have said that.
No, that's okay. I've already sworn.
Stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting because I when you said that stat then, the 6 and the 3, I immediately thought, yeah, America definitely is that in a good way. But I never thought it might be the flip side to that coin, which produces some of the more negative. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're too pushy. We're too trying to be perfect. Well, not perfect, but we're trying to achieve. And, you're a loser if you don't do this, and you need to do that and do the rest of it. I mean, they have good qualities too. I mean, all the 9 types are good. Even at the 6 is very loyal, very supportive, very, it's like helping each other out, which we do. You think of England and you think, oh, no, after you, no, after you, no, after you, Whereas, so there's different aspects, but there's the unconscious side to each personality. So I see it more driving in that way, and the negative side of that could be that there's the heart isn't there as much, especially if it's around things like animals, or if I'm right, you're wrong kind of thing.
Okay, well, let's channel our inner Britishness, and I'll say thank you for being a guest on the podcast and sharing your story, and particularly sharing some of your passion and love for bears. I've had a look at some of the stuff that you've put out there, and oh my god, they seem. I'd love to get up close and personal with bears like that. So, right up my street. I've got to come to Asheville, I think.
Yeah, come to Asheville, and you can come and sit on my deck, and I'll introduce you to the family of Mum and 2 cubs, and Grace, who is just the most gentlest bear in the world.
Really?
I mean, from a distance, I mean, even close up. I was creating a video actually the other day for a retreat I'm running here, and in the background, as I was videoing myself, I saw her appear behind me, and so I just turned around and said hi, and she just turned around and walked off.
Love it.
So that's what they're like.
Brilliant. I'll take you up on that one day, Elaine. Because I am coming to Asheville at some point.
Well, let me know when you're here.
Right, well, Elaine, if anyone wants to connect with you, hunt you down. Sorry, that's a terrible pun for this conversation. If anyone wants to find you online, where can they do so?
You can find me online. You can find me at my website online, which is coachbrilliant.com. The word coach, the word brilliant.com, and that's that you can write me at info@coachbrilliant.com, and that's where you find me. And just, as a summary of the work that I do there, I am owner founder of Coach Brilliant, and whether it's all about coaching. So I work with clients who are, whether you're a seasoned coach or a new coach, I help them to understand themselves as a coach, understand their clients deeply. And as a result of that, it helps them to achieve brilliant results in the coaching business. Because if you're running a business, then it is about making money. But most of us go into coaching because we really want to help people, but you can make money out of it too.
Good. Great. Well, track it down, people. Right. Well, thank you, Elaine, for being a guest on Always an Expat.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's
been
wonderful. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. See you soon.
Bye-bye.